Okay, let's get started this morning. Good morning and welcome to today's Centurion Research Solutions webinar on how to ensure project success. I am your host, Rich Thielen, General Manager here at Centurion. I appreciate everyone joining us for what will be an information-packed session. A little bit of background on Centurion. We track 25,000 plus federal government opportunities across multiple vertical markets and support all four of these major industry challenges. We provide leading-edge federal market research through our Business Intelligence Now product, enabling you to find more federal opportunities earlier. We offer actionable insight through our custom research and analysis offering. Our Opportunity Assessment Now tool allows you to make fact-based bid, no-bid decisions and manage the health of your business pipeline. Finally, we offer competitive pricing analysis, training and coaching to improve your business development process. Together, these products and services were created with one thing in mind, helping you win more business. This is our 9th webinar in Centurion's Government Contractor Knowledge webinar series. Today's host, Mike Lisagor, the founder of CelerityWorks, and Centurion's business development subject matter expert. A former BD executive and program manager, Mike has been helping government contractors accelerate their revenue growth for decades and has also performed risk assessments on several major GSA projects. We are recording today's event. An on-demand copy as well as a copy of the slides will be available tomorrow on Centurion's website. Finally, in consideration of your busy schedules, we will be continuing this discussion at our company LinkedIn profile right after the conclusion of today's webinar. So without further ado, Mike, take it away.
Thank you, Rich, and the hundreds of you who have taken time out of your busy schedules to join us today. Your company probably commits significant resources to the identification and capture of new business. And this is as it should be, especially in this highly competitive market. But of equal importance is the need to ensure that you hang on to and expand every piece of existing business. This means outstanding project performance and customer relations. The Project Management Institute's project lifecycle, illustrated in this diagram, is the management process for planning and controlling the performance of a project from inception to closure. But please don't leave. It isn't my intention to cover all the elements of this process. Rather, I'd like to try to illuminate some of the areas of greatest risk to project success. Then I'll discuss follow-on business and recompete strategies. There are a finite set of factors that successful project managers seem to have in common. These are all based on a commitment to personal excellence and career goals, pursuit of continuing education, involvement in sales activities, keeping track of and reporting project status, ensuring client satisfaction through persistence in the face of challenges. Project managers' whole world revolves around managing and balancing the 6 factors of schedule, cost, scope, human resources, quality, and risks. It's surprising to me how many PMs aren't aware of all their project's requirements. In some cases, they haven't even read the original request for proposal, their company's proposal, or all of the sections of the contract. Not knowing the requirements is like trying to hike somewhere without a compass or a map, and then being shocked when you don't reach your destination. Particular attention should be paid to any gaps between what was proposed and the project plan. It's not unusual, especially on larger procurements, for there to be a long time between proposal submittal and contract award. Salaries and overhead costs may have changed, and circumstances, such as product releases and project staff availability, may impact the PM's ability to deliver according to the proposed schedule. All of these factors need to be taken into consideration and, where necessary, coordinated with contracts and the client upon award. Make note of all the shall statements in the RFP as well as in the proposal, including specific deliverables. These requirements may have been documented in a proposal traceability compliance matrix. Also important are ancillary requirements such as special equipment, security clearances, technology specialists, certifications, or unique training. Finally, it's crucial to understand how often and when the project status is to be reported to the customer. Commitments and assumptions made in the proposal should be compared with the RFP and Statement of Work requirements. Any ambiguities, as well as any tasks that might not be possible to complete, should be clarified with the contracts department or the client. Here's an example of the contents of a typical project plan. Many major government projects require a project management plan as a contract deliverable. This document describes how the project will be managed to successful completion. You should regularly revisit and update the plan to reflect current project status and to make sure you haven't neglected an important aspect of the plan. It also serves as a valuable transition document if a new PM comes on board. It's hard to overstate the importance of relationships when discussing successful project management and the acquisition of follow-on business. Knowing key individuals, like project decision makers or influencers, is critical for continued success. Who these individuals are, however, is not always apparent. For instance, many IT projects are actually funded by a client's operational unit, whose buy-in is needed in both the requirements phase as well as in the delivery acceptance phase. Again, knowing your stakeholders is crucial. I know one integrator that learned their lesson the hard way. This company won a large performance-based contract to develop maintenance workstations for a federal transportation agency. Yet the contractor didn't seek sufficient input from the client's actual field technicians who would be using the system. Upon delivery and test of the first production unit, a fairly large staff member's legs would not fit under the workstation's protruding keyboard. As a result, the entire system had to be redesigned at a significant cost to the contractor. Internal company support organizations also play a critical role in ensuring project success. Efforts to effectively communicate with them in a timely and responsive manner will pay huge dividends. Too many PMs see internal support staff as obstacles needed to be overcome, as opposed to resources to help them succeed. These are crucial relationships, and if maintained, they will net project success and additional follow-on business. A stakeholder analysis matrix, such as the one shown here, can be used to assess how much and what kind of attention you should pay to various stakeholders. More complicated programs with numerous stakeholders which have conflicting interests can be further analyzed using an influence map, a network diagram showing relationships between every key player. A project authority matrix is a useful management tool to document the role that each stakeholder has in determining the project's success. This example illustrates a simple matrix for various project stakeholders, and it should include everyone who should be involved with the execution of a successful project. A risk is an uncertain event or condition that, if it occurs, has a positive or negative effect on project outcomes. In my experience of doing risk assessments for GSA, I've observed that very few industry and government managers actually pay sufficient attention to the identification and management of risk. The best way to avoid project risk is to identify and plan how to mitigate the potential negative effects while taking advantage of the positive effects. This doesn't have to be an elaborate and time-consuming effort. Rather, simply prepare a list of all the possible risks to include business, cost and contract, technical hurdles, schedule risk, resource availability, programmatic issues. The product of this analysis is several what-if scenarios. Next, estimate the probability and the potential impact of each scenario using an assessment guide such as the one shown here. Estimate the probability of occurrence and the potential impact of each risk scenario. Then, for the risks that have the highest probability of occurrence and the highest negative impact, identify one or more mitigation measures. Typically, it is not cost-effective to develop or implement mitigation measures for the less probable or medium risks. An example of a major risk might be 2 required key staff not being recruited in time to support your project. Your risk mitigation action might be to identify 2 internal or subcontractor backup resources that you can call upon should this risk scenario materialize. Another risk is of a delay in client review of critical contract deliverable. This can be mitigated by establishing agreed-upon review milestones with the client. Various contract types, such as firm fixed price and cost plus, also present different types of risks. This table is an example of a simple risk matrix or register that should be used to document project risk scenarios, and for the more significant risks, mitigation steps that either will be taken to prevent the risk from occurring or actions that might be taken should the risk materialize. This risk register should be maintained in the project plan throughout the life of the project, and updates reflected in monthly project status reports. It's amazing how many managers dive into new projects without taking the time to meet with the internal and external stakeholders and their own project team, including the proposal manager. For program success, it is important to begin with a proactive project kickoff meeting so that all parties are on the same page. This is similar to a construction team discussing the architect's blueprint before laying a new building's foundation. All company stakeholders should be invited to internal meetings, and all client stakeholders should be invited to client kickoff meetings unless otherwise specified in the contract or by the client. Here's a client kickoff meeting checklist, which you can use later as a reference. Be sure to include all applicable criteria to ensure that you're off to the right start. We've all been to unproductive meetings, and nothing can derail a new project more quickly than a poorly run kickoff meeting. This emphasizes the fact that the most successful PMs are not only good technical experts and planners, but also have excellent organization and management skills. The preparations leading up to project kickoff meeting, as well as the conduct of the meeting itself, are a likely indicator of project success. Quality management and control involves monitoring the project and its progress to determine if the quality standards defined during project planning are being implemented and whether the results meet quality standards defined during project initiation. The entire organization has responsibilities relating to quality, but the primary responsibility for ensuring that the project follows its defined quality procedures ultimately belongs to the project manager. One way to make sure you can manage your client's expectations is to confirm every agreement in writing. This is the only way to minimize misunderstandings. I like to document agreements in an email that I send to all involved parties. On the other hand, in the 1980s, I was an integration project manager for the FAA's National Airspace Modernization Program. A typical requirement was that the system should be user-friendly. Of course, there was no way for the government to determine whether what the contractor delivered met this requirement. So what you get in writing is also very important. You and your client should know what constitutes success. If you don't, you'll never be done. This is especially important on fixed-price tasks. Establish corresponding project acceptance criteria, like a balanced scorecard. Always try to set expectations that you can meet or exceed. Read your contract, especially the statement of work, and refer back to it before agreeing to additional tasking. You're responsible for controlling the scope of work and changes to it. Ignore the contract at your peril. Almost all contracts have a defined scope of work. Too often, project managers, sometimes with pressures from sales or because they are strong people pleasers, try to deliver everything their client wants regardless of the impact on cost and schedule. This is why it's important to make sure that you and your client have a clear understanding and agreement regarding what is in and out of scope as it relates to the contract in place. This clearly is one of the biggest government contractor challenges. I once had a PM who, unbeknownst to me, did work on the weekends to please his government customer. This PM finally burned out, and the client was furious when the replacement PM refused to work such long hours. You need to be willing to say no to your client when something the client wants is out of scope. Of course, I realize that this is often a very difficult thing to do. When a request is unreasonable or unethical, there have been instances where I had to walk away from business because to accept the work would have saddled my company with unacceptable risk. I expect we will see even more of this as the government awards more contracts to the lowest price, technically acceptable bidders, companies who in some cases cannot deliver on the contract. When something is not in the client's best interest, you can say, our experience has shown us that. When you must say no, try to offer a more attractive alternative to solve the client's problem. And when all else fails, talk to your manager. Don't just put your head down and ignore the problem. The longer you wait, the worse things will get. No client likes to be surprised with bad news. A key component of maintaining a good customer relationship is to identify and communicate potential project risks to your client before they become more serious issues. In other words, don't wait until the day before a deliverable is due to tell your client you're going to miss the deadline. Instead, bring them a solution along with the problem in advance. Of course, this implies establishing a no-blame type of company culture that encourages project staff to report accurate progress status. While personal services are against the federal regulations, I'm still aware of some contractors that function in this manner, at least in some part. So try to establish a collaborative, Stephen Covey-like win-win partnership with your client. Help your client understand that your company is a services and solutions delivery company as opposed to a personal services company. You deliver high-quality products and services, and for instance, want to avoid your client managing your staff's time cards and sending your staff on personal errands. Help your client focus on contract deliverables and milestones instead of just the provision of warm bodies. Actively seek client feedback regarding what is going well and not well. Also, listen to your teammates regarding project status and concerns. You can't fix it if you don't know about it. The problem you ignore or refuse to hear will often surface later to torpedo your project. The quality of your relationship with your client can be an excellent barometer for the status of your project. Make sure not to avoid your client. Even bad news needs to be communicated in a timely manner to avoid doing serious damage to your credibility and relationship. Danger signs include you and your client aren't talking. You're afraid to talk to your client about something. There's friction between you and your client. You're not sure if your client will like what you're going to deliver. To get your project out of trouble, meet with your client to understand their concerns. Bring a company senior manager or executive to show commitment, or when you have to deliver bad news, like you can't spend more company money on fixing a problem that is not your company's fault. I once had to tell my government counterpart that a space shuttle ground support software module design had to be redone. Fortunately, my senior manager came with me to deliver the message. He was able to reassure the lieutenant client that we were committing the necessary resources to recover, and to my relief that I shouldn't be fired. When necessary, work with your client to redefine project closure. This might sound like a recipe for failure, but I've witnessed numerous major government facilities, engineering, and IT programs be redefined sometimes on an annual basis. This is, of course, frustrating to me as a taxpayer, but as a contractor, it often meant the difference between contract cancellation and contract extension. We used to have a saying that it was often the third team that brought a government project into completion. Hopefully, you'll be the exception. Make sure to include your contractor administrator in this process, and then make sure any baseline changes are documented. Once you've successfully kicked off your project, you should be on the lookout for additional tasking both with your existing client and other key client managers. If you find talking to other potential customers too intimidating, take someone from business development with you. And remember, it's much less costly to cross-sell other companies' capabilities and solutions to existing customers than to new ones. The other major business development activity every PM needs to be aware of is the need to perform early recompete capture activities. Of course, maintaining customer satisfaction is a major element of winning a recompete. But waiting until the last minute to prepare and execute a capture plan and prepare to write a winning proposal is a recipe for disaster. Since capture management will be the topic of our January webinar, right now I'd like to focus just specifically on capturing contract recompetes. At least several months before your contract is to be recompeted, you should define and implement a winning capture strategy. Be a champion for necessary capture and proposal resources. Every recompete should have some level of capture plan. This process can be greatly enhanced and facilitated by using Centurion's Opportunity Assessment Now analytic tool. I always try to approach recompetes as if my company wasn't the incumbent. In other words, what would it take to beat us? And what could we be doing to mitigate these weaknesses? As summarized in this table, winning recompete contracts involves understanding the client's acquisition strategy and the potential competition. You need to know which companies are teaming together along with their respective strengths and weaknesses. Additionally, as the incumbent, it's imperative that you correct any weaknesses prior to the start of the acquisition process. Some key capture positioning questions you should consider are, is it time to replace your PM? Does the client like him or her? Do you still have the right subcontractors to win the recompete? Are there any weaknesses that need to be corrected or process improvements that could be implemented? Can you make these changes prior to the proposal period? What are your key themes and discriminators? Too often, managers assume that because the client's satisfied with your performance, they will give higher proposal scores. However, this assumes that your key clients are actually on the proposal evaluation team, which is not always the case. Make sure you describe the features and benefits of your technical approach, even if the client knows this already. You need to give them the information they need to be able to give you a higher proposal evaluation. Make sure to describe the management approach, including staffing, organization, and task management. Don't take anything for granted. It all needs to be in the proposal, even though the client already knows this information. Try to find a place, if possible, in your proposal to include a management risk assessment and mitigation discussion to demonstrate your understanding of the job. And also, consider whether you need to be more aggressive in the pricing of the offer. Sometimes this means replacing some personnel and hiring more junior staff, except for key personnel the client loves. You can't just assume the client will pay a premium to keep you. So try to determine what this difference is. Centurion's pricing efforts can help perform this analysis. Finally, avoid drinking your own bathwater. Complacent, overconfident contractors usually lose their recompetes. In these highly competitive times, more and more companies are relying on Centurion's products and services to enhance every phase of their business development process. I hope you can join us for our next Government Contractor Knowledge webinar on Tuesday, January 15, where I'll talk about how to develop a winning capture plan. The first 200 people to register and attend will receive a free copy of a PowerPoint capture plan template. Feel free to email one of the individuals shown on this slide for further information. A copy of today's slides will be made available at the web address listed here, and a recording of this session will be uploaded by tomorrow. I'll be sending out an email tomorrow morning to all attendees with a link to both, as well as a registration link for the next webinar. Based on today's attendance, I'd again recommend registering early for the next webinar to guarantee your virtual seat. I'll leave this slide up for the next 5 minutes, and until January 15th, I thank you for your attention, wish you a safe and enjoyable holiday season, and happy hunting.
Mike, thank you so much. Very, very informative. Really appreciate all your time. Great job today. We look forward to seeing everybody in January. Thank you.